skip to the honest and supplementing part first.
Okay.
I think that's the transition, quite honestly. So everything I talked about just here recently, I know that contractors in general are hesitant and don't know why they should have to ever show what their costs are, because they're thinking they're revealing something to the insurer that they're going to take, that the insurer is then going to be able to use against them. And it's not entirely untrue, except if you're confident about why you're showing them and how they're arriving at their estimates, then it becomes a tool that you can actually use in your favor. You can actually use it to compare to what they're, just like we did here. Just like we pull this up and say, hey, this is what your program tells me the cost should be for this, and this is what my costs actually are. So there's not this industry, because it's based on Xactimate for the most part, and Xactimate is a program that's based entirely on cost. That's all. It's cost plus labor overhead. That's all it is. There's really no benefit to not revealing your cost, and this is where the honest and supplementing comes from, because in my opinion, because the industry itself and Xactimate and the insurers, they're all dependent on Xactimate and the way it's built. The only way to really win at this game is to take the Xactimate published pricing that they're so dependent on, that they're so dig their feet in on, and show them why it's incorrect. And the only way to do that is to start to reveal your cost, start to reveal what your costs really are, because that's what the program is based on. You can't sit there and just tell an insurer, look, everybody would love to be able to tell an insurer, well, I need $850 a square because that's what I need. I don't have to show you my costs. I'm a company. This is proprietary. I don't have to tell you all that. That's just wrong. The insurance paperwork, insurance estimates, the insurance world in general is they owe for the cost incurred. That's what the policies say. So they owe the costs. So if you're trying to challenge that world, the easiest way to do it is show them that the costs are wrong. That leaves you with the debate becomes, what's a reasonable markup and margin over that? And I would say in a lot of cases, like in the Denver market, Xactimate shows you what it's got a pretty good reasonable market margin up there. If you run a pretty good estimate right now in the Denver market using Xactimate published pricing, you're going to be north of 40% gross margin for a roof, which is decent. I mean, it's not, it's not the best, but it's enough. It's enough to get by. It's certainly enough to get by, have some money left over, and know that you can probably, in a decent year, you're going to be okay, and you're going to be around for the next year. That's not true in every market, that's for sure. But in Denver, because we've just beat on Xactimate so much, they've made tons and tons of adjustments. But this again goes back to my honest and supplementing thing. It's the only tool we have. These insurers are just such big monsters. They have, they have all of the tools to use against it. They got more money. They spend more money in just advertising than all of us together make combined. They have a stronger presence, or a much larger presence in legislation, and what happens with bills that get passed, and how the laws are around insurance world. And they've got, in a lot of cases, the people that are judging all of us, if we're trying to sue or something, they more or less kind of work for them, because they've got all this money that they throw out all over the place to support support donations, political donations, so on and so forth. And they're at the same places that the judges and so on. They'll be at the same kind of social environment. The whole point is, there is no way that the contractors, unless all of us somehow got together in some collusive spirit where we, it's just never going to happen. We're never going to have the same power and influence the insurance companies have. So the only way to combat that, in my opinion, is to present the truth. the truth is the one thing they really can't argue with. They really can't say that that's you know, they can't say you're clearly, if you're speaking the truth, they can't claim you're trying to play some game with them or committing fraud or anything like that, which doesn't help us as an industry. The more those things happen, the more damaging it is to all of us as a whole. If one guy, and there was a guy here in Colorado, like, I don't know, 15 years ago, who went out, collected, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars with the first checks, didn't get any of the work done. It's just one, you know, one example of one guy in Colorado in probably what was, you know, a couple $1 billion year. That year was a big year in Colorado. So two, maybe a little bit more $1 billion in damage. Well, this one guy, you know, he swallowed $700,000 for the first checks and didn't get the work done. So he was you know, less than 1% of what happened in Colorado that year. But he was the catalyst, and all over the news. And then the next year they were trying to pass legislation, so on and so forth, to control roofing contractors because of one bad apple. That's the problem we're up against. That we don't have bad stuff for us, and dishonest stuff for us costs all of us because it becomes the highlighted thing. That just doesn't happen to insurers. I mean, because they spread it out amongst. State Farm has dozens of subsidiaries, so on and so forth. There is no, if State Farm rips off Mrs. Jones or rips off, I don't know, 100 people in one market for, let's say it's 15, we'll call it $10,000 a piece. So it's $1 million. That's not going to be on the news. Nobody's going to hear about it. But one contractor that just rips off 4 or 5 different people, there's a good chance that will be on the news. So that's where honest and supplementing is, as a whole, as you know, as a part of this industry, we have to adhere to that if we're going to ever have any credence or credibility in trying to get things changed, to truly pay a reasonable and fair margin that we all deserve. There's no question about that. And that, to me, is the argument that we should be trying to make is that, look, these are our costs. We're trying to run decent companies here. We're just trying to keep people we got employed. And you need to, Mr. Insurer, you need to accept that is what we're doing, and pay us a reasonable, fair amount that any reasonable person would think is a reasonable and fair amount. So I'm not about trying to play games with Xactimate or anything else, or with the items you're doing. If they're paying you if they included trash chutes on a commercial building, for instance, and you're not doing trash chutes, you figured out a different way to manage the trash. Maybe you're throwing it off over onto a tarp, but you just think you didn't need the trash chutes, and you think, well, this what we did do is the same as the trash chute, so it's a wash. Better to let them know exactly what you did do, and show them why the cost is the same thing.